The battle we have here right in front of us is a Brutalis versus Tyranid survival game, where the goal is to see whether a Brutalis Dreadnought is worth beating up all these Tyranids. In this video series, we will compare different Space Marine units with their counterparts. Just a little bit more info on this Brutalis Dreadnought. This is one with the Talons. Let's roll to see who goes first. Tyranids are red, Space Marines blue. Looks like the blueberries are going first. So we're going to move him a little bit, 8 inches behind this wall. This is line of sight blocking. The wood block is just a little example. Turn him around and let's face the Tyranids he can actually see. He has the Iron Hull Heavy Stubber and the Multi-Meltas. Both of them are twin linked and can reroll their wounds. First, the Heavy Stubber into the Termagants. This is into the red squad. We hit 5 times and we wounded all but once and we get a reroll. And it still misses. And now Termagant saves on 5-ups, and 2 of them survive. We'll be taking them and putting them right off here behind the dice tray, so they're easy to see. And now to figure out what's in range of the Multi-Melta. Originally, the Brutalis Dreadnought was going to go into the Von Ryan's Leapers, but they were too far away, so into the Winged Tyranid Prime it goes. This is hitting on 3s. Oh, we missed one. Take that out, and let's roll the wounds. And that is not a wound, but it's twin-linked. And that is a wound. AP is so strong that the Winged Tyranid Prime does not get a save, and that is 5 damage flat, putting our Warlord Winged Tyranid Prime down to 1. So far, the only blood of this game is 2 Termagants, and going on to the Tyranids round 2. This is after movement. Every white dice represents a different amount advanced, so every unit that had assault or didn't have any guns to shoot pretty much advanced. And that's movement, on to shooting. First thing to do as any good Tyranids player is to drop off a Spore Mine, to hopefully cause some mortal wounds later, making sure it's in deep strike range, that is 9 inches, and onto shooting. You cannot see the purple squads and the Neurolictor because that wood is representing a line of sight blocking wall. And on to 8 Termagant shooting the Dreadnought. We had just 4 hits. I'm going to go take those out. Having mild trouble removing them and watching the camera. And now wounding on 6s, that's none of them. Okay, now going into the charge phase. First up will be this Winged Tyranid Prime trying to get around that wall. And we will roll a 12. Wow. I'm going to put him around to the corner, trying to make the rest of the charges a little bit easier so they have a little bit more room. And now going into the Spore Mimes charge, which hopefully will give me some mortal wounds, but I don't think that's enough. Yep, out of deep strike. Now needing a 7 for this red Termagant squad to get in. And an 11's enough, good grief. So they're getting in. 7 will be in combat, plus the Winged Tyranid Prime. And now it's the Tyranids fight phase. And now it's the Winged Tyranid Prime hitting on 2-ups, and we only dropped 1. Now we will wound on 5s and 6s. Oh, that's just 1. But now we'll be saving on 3-ups. Oh, that's a miss. That's 2 damage. Dreadnought down to 10. That's a big deal. We have 7 red Termagants in combat, and they will be hitting on 4-ups. And I think that's just the one I rolled right at the end. Taking all the misses out, and now we should be wounding on 6s again. So hopefully we get this to go off. And yep, that's a miss. That's pretty close though. About what I thought. Termagants in combat. But now on to the Dreadnoughts phase. So I'm doing a sweep attack and dividing into 2 sections. So hitting on 3-ups. That drops 2. This is into the red squad of Termagants. And now wounding on 3-ups. Sadly, they do not get a save because the AP is too high. They actually would have been 2 damage apiece, but Termagants are only 1 damage apiece. So bye-bye, Reds. And now 5 attacks into the Winged Tyranid Prime. Can the Dreadnought down him? 3 hits, and that's no wounds, but luckily it's twin-linked, so we can reroll all the wounds. And that's 2 wounds. Saving on 6s, and that's neither of them. So that is the Winged Tyranid Prime and the Tyranid Warlord down. So that's a big deal for the Dreadnought. But it gets a fight on death and a 4-up, and that is a 6, so it will be fighting on death. So all the attacks again, hitting on 2-ups, that's all of them. Wounding on 5s and 6s, and that's 4. That's a lot of wounds on something with such a high toughness. And saving on 3-ups, that's 2 more damage. That should take the Dreadnought down to about 8. But sadly, the Tyranid Prime is removed from the game. And now it will be the Dreadnought's next turn. So this is round 2, and I think our Dreadnought has his eyes set on some Von Ryan's Leapers. We have a Heavy Stubber, rapid fire, 6 shots, hitting on 3-ups, and that is 5 hits. Wounding on 5s and 6s twin linked. Oh, luckily we get a reroll again, and hopefully we'll get some. That would be 3 wounds. Saving on 4-ups. Oh no, that's none of them. They're 3 wounds apiece, so 1 dies, sadly, and is removed from the game. Now we just have to have the Von Ryan's Leapers watch out for the Multi-Meltas. Luckily, they're not in Melta range, though, so they should possibly be able to take some damage. All hit, 1 wounds, re-rolling that wound because of twin linked, and that is 2 Multi-Melta wounds. Invulnerable save of 6s, and that is just 1 save. Rolling for damage, and that is 4 damage. Sadly, they are only 3 wounds apiece, so that is another Vonrine Leaper. Just 1 model in the squad, almost a character at this point. And now into the fight phase because the Dreadnought cannot charge. Piling in with the Termagants, and let's see how they do. So we have 5 Termagants hitting on 4-ups, and that looks like that is 2 hits. Wounding on 6s, that is no wounds, onto the Dreadnought. We are using the sweep profile, which is 10 dice, hitting on 3-ups, and that's a really bad roll. For wounds, wounding on everything but 1s, re-rolling because of Twin Linked. That is still not a wound. 3 will be removed because they do not get saves because of the AP. Now it is the Tyranid movement phase. They're going to try to line up as many shots as possible. Every white dice indicates an advance roll that was made. Several did really poorly, several did really good. Prolictor was able to speed pretty much around the board. And now it's time to pop the Spore Mine. For those of you who don't know, you roll a dice, and on a 1, it does nothing. On a 2 through 5, it does 1 mortal wound, and on a 6, it does 3. So only 1 mortal wound was dealt, down to 7 on the Dreadnought. Any wounds done is a big deal, so Spore Mines are a really good way to do this. Now to the shooting phase, the Spore has shot a Spore Mine out to 9 inches away again. Now the Psychophage will Flamer. Looks like we get 2 shots. Wounding on 5s and 6s, and that is neither of them. Now to the full squad of 10 Termagants shooting into the Brutalis Dreadnought. Hitting on 4-ups, one of the dice didn't fully get rolled, okay, and that's a 4. So now wounding on 6s, I believe. And that is 1 wound at no AP, so this will be a 3-up, and he saves. Entire wave of shooting, no damage. But the Psychophage does allow extra AP on the fight phase for all Tyranid units fighting in to the Brutalis Dreadnought. That's a special ability. Now, a bunch of Ripper Swarms are going to charge the Brutalis Dreadnought. First one, going in on a 7. Wow, that's a lot. I'm going to try to snake it around a little bit to hopefully get the other ones in. And now the next one charging in, and that's a 9. It will definitely be able to get in. Snaking around again, hopefully leaving enough room for the other one to get in on a 8, which it does. So that's all 3 Ripper Swarms in. They are functioning as separate units, so damage will not roll over to the other one. They have to be specifically targeted. The 2 Termagants trying to hit the Brutalis Dreadnought, and wounding on a 6, and that is a wound, so AP is -1, but it still saves. Going on to the Ripper Swarms, and they get 6 attacks each. I'm going to roll them all together, but they are separate units. Sustained hits 1, so all 6s get an extra dice. So that is actually 8 hits when you count in the sustained hits. Now wounding on 6s, and actually that's a lot. AP -1, oh, that is a damage. The Ripper Swarms did more damage than the entire shooting phase. The Brutalis Dreadnought's going to sweep with 6 attacks going into 1 Ripper Swarm and 4 attacks going into the Termagants. Hit all the times, wounded 3 of the times, but they do not get a save because of the AP. Now into the Ripper Swarm base, that is all but 1. Nope, that's 2 out. Now wounding on everything but 1s, Twin Linked. One of the dice went out. I'm going to re-roll that, so it's in the dice tray, and there we go. Again, the AP is too much, and they don't have an invulnerable save. That is all the Tyranids that have been killed so far in this game. And the Brutalis Dreadnought is down to 7. Now moving on to the Dreadnought shooting phase, and we are going to put the Multi-Meltas that are in Multi-Melta range into the Neurolictor. Okay, that is 1 hit and 1 wound. And vulnerable save on a 4-up, and that is a 1, so that is not a save. D6 plus 2 damage, and that is 7 damage. Good grief. That is enough to put down the Neurolictor off the board. And now we have the Icarus Heavy Stubber going into the Von Ryan's Leapers. This is in rapid fire range. This is on 3-ups. Wounding on 5s and 6s. Twin Linked. So we got to reroll those 3 not wounds into. So now we have a total of 3 wounds. The Von Ryan's Leapers do have a 4-up save and a 6-up vulnerable save, but there's no AP, so it's just 4-ups. And it looks like only 1 damage is taken on the Von Ryan's Leapers. And now into the fight phase. So we're going to have the Dreadnought split its attacks. 3 into 1 set of Rippers and 3 into another. I didn't show the Rippers combat because it didn't do anything. So this is 3-ups and then everything but 1s. That kills the base because of the AP. And then again, 3-ups and everything but 1s. Twin Linked, so even if I rolled a 1, I could re-roll it. And nope, there's another base dead. And that is the Dreadnought's combat phase. So it killed the Rippers, but really wished it could have killed bigger targets. So this is pre-Tyranid movement, and then after it's been moved, post-Tyranid movement. So everything got closer except the Biovore, which is still staying hidden because shooting the Biovore would be sad. We did drop a Spore Mine, and it advanced, which does do a mortal wound on a 2-up, and a mortal wound has been done, dropping it down to 5. Every mortal wound is really important on the Brutalis Dreadnought. So now the Psychophage will be shooting in there, D6 shots, that is 4 shots. Wounding on 5s and 6s, and that is no wounds. but the crystal is put on the Dreadnought, meaning AP going into it in the fight phase will be +1. This is the 10 Termagants shooting into the Dreadnought, wounding on 6s, and that is 1 wound. So on a 1 it does damage. Oh, there's another damage done to the Dreadnought, down to 4. So this is pretty crazy. Let's see if the Dreadnought can hold off the Tyranid Tide. Now it's 10 combat with the Termagants, wounding on 6s. Oh, there's 1 wound again. That is a 3-up, and looks like the Dreadnought is fine. Now the Von Ryan's Leaper into it. That's 6 shots hitting on 3-ups. That's all but 1, wounding on 5s and 6s. Okay, that looks like it's 2 wounds, and that should do a damage, putting it down to 3 wounds. Now let's see the Dreadnought clap back. We have the sweep profile, 4 into the Von Ryan's Leapers and 6 into the Termagants, hitting on 3-ups. This is into the Von Ryan's Leapers and wounding on 3-ups, re-rolling. That is still not a wound. And on a 6-up invulnerable save, the Von Ryan's Leaper is sadly dead. And that's the Leaper squad. And into the Termagants, wow, that is a horrible roll. So out of 6 shots, we hit twice. And now wounding on everything but 1's re-rolling. That is 2 dead Termagants because they don't get an invulnerable save. Now Dreadnought shooting Meltas into the Psychophage, hitting on 3-ups, and that is a wound. Now it's D6 damage because it doesn't get a save because of the 4 AP, and that is 6 5-up feel no pains, and the Psychophage makes none, putting it down to 4. It is massive for the Dreadnought. Now the Heavy Stubber into the Termagants, wounding on 3-ups, re-rolling because of twin linked on the guns. Makes it 5 wounds, and then 5 5-up saves for the Termagants. 4 are dead. 1 saved. Now removing the crystal because it's only in the Tyranids combat phase. 4 Termagants heading to the Dreadnoughts, hitting on 4-ups. That is 2 hits. And now wounding on 6s, that is no wounds. Now 10 shots on a sweep attack, hitting into the Termagants on 3-ups, and then wounding on everything but 1s, re-rolling those 1s because of twin linked. And because of the AP, the Termagants do not get a save, and that is all of them wiped off the board. Here is the current board setting going into movement. So the Psychophage is scooted forward, so did the Biovore. Board drops a Spore Mine right in front of it to protect the Biovore. Now the Psychophage will Flamer the Dreadnought. D6 shots. So 4 wounding on 5s and 6s, and that is no wounds. But the crystal will be put on, adding 1 AP to next attacks. Can the Psychophage down the Dreadnought? Let's see. 6 attacks, hitting on 3-ups. That is all of them, wow. +1 to wound and devastating wounds because she's at half strength, and that is 2 devastating wounds. She does 2 damage apiece, so that is 4 wounds, putting our Dreadnought down to -1 wounds. But I think he did pretty well, all things said. This was his kill count, and he was almost able to down the Psychophage in the end. If you enjoyed this and watched the end, please consider liking and subscribing, or talking in the comments about supporting our channel. Special characters, we had Mia's 3 Termagants, Carrot, the Winged Tyranid Prime, and Alfred, the Psychophage. Thanks for watching.